Okay.
There we go.
All right. So we just started the video, and then it looks like it crapped out on us. But I don't know what was going on. The lighting or something? I don't know.
It's going now, though.
Anyways, yeah. So this is the second segment, and we're gonna veer off a little bit off politics here. Go ahead, Al.
Well, I thought that he introduced me to the new podcast that Billy Corgan is doing, which is basically he just interviews different musicians. And it's already interesting on multiple levels. One of which is I had tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins last year, and we screwed up on getting there, so we got there in time for who was it? Green Day, but not for Smashing Pumpkins, who were right before them. That's sort of neither here nor there. But first episode was Gene Simmons, and it was interesting that they steer away from all of the things that could be considered most controversial. You know, Gene's sex life or his current political views, all this, and they mostly just focused on the music, which I was actually more intrigued by all the other stuff. I actually don't view Kiss as that. I mean, they're an okay band. I've never thought of them as one of the greats, but it was still an interesting interview. And then the second one, which I'm almost done watching, is Tom Morello, which of course you almost can't get more political than that. And he only allowed it to be political up to a point, but it was funny. The most political that he got in terms of his own experience, Tom Morello was describing how when he was in college, shortly after college or something, he was working for like a senator or something, and the lesson that he learned was that it's all about money. I think it was a Democratic senator, but the point was he was just trying to raise money, and it wasn't necessarily even about the issues. I mean, it was you kind of get where I'm going with that. But my point in bringing the podcast and music into this is just to try and steer us a little bit away from politics, which once again, second guest was Tom Morello, so you can't get away from it, you know.
Right. So I got, interestingly enough too, you were talking about Gene Simmons and his politics, because as far as I understand, he's like more like an idiot. Like,
he's right wing, but I don't know exactly to what extent.
Right. I think more on the libertarian bent, obviously.
I hope so, yeah.
I mean, obviously, he's not like a Christian nationalist or any of that.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't even know, like, because did Billy Corgan say anything about having admired them as a youth, or was an influence on him?
Oh, no, he was a huge fan, yes.
Right. Okay.
So he's not pulling up people that are like unknown to him. He's always pulling people that are he had some experience with and or been a big fan. In fact, he even mentioned a point where, you know, he was on the stage at a Kiss concert that he'd been invited to, and, you know, this kind of thing. And that he'd been on tour with Tom Morello at about the same time that their band and original bands were both big, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is another one of those bands, and we had this discussion, you know, in one of our previous segments where I was talking about how rock and roll kind of died after Zeppelin, and in my, like, the way I see it, and like maybe when the last was Stevie Ray Vaughan, or, you know, somebody else could probably think of something else that I'll agree with, but right off the top of my head, you know, I'm just like, into this like late 70s. By that time, forget about it. And there was some progressive rock that I liked, like Yes, and, you know, even Boston I could stomach, and Journey I could stomach, and some of this other, obviously Neil Peart and
Rush, definitely, all
I
of
could
Rush,
deal with
yeah.
that. But some of this other stuff, and Kiss was just on that list of like, what is this? This is a joke,
Well,
right?
and
for me.
And Gene Simmons' point, which he's sort of accurate and sort of not, but where he's accurate is he loves to make the point that, you know, rock and roll is dead, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And is music dead? Are there no good new bands out there, new artists, whatever? No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You can go out and you can find it. It's there. But is it true that these super groups that make crazy amounts of money and fill crazy halls and whatever, is it true that those, at least in terms of newer acts, are basically dead? Yes, he's absolutely right on that account, and that's not entirely a bad thing. But some of the reasons for it, kind of, I mean, the record industry has changed a lot.
This is a veering off a little bit, but I mean, I think that, like, there are super groups that have been around for a while that can still sell out a stadium.
Oh, yeah, but
they've existed.
But they've existed for at least 20, 30 years or more.
Your point is that there's no bands that are forming today or in the recent past that can be considered one of these super groups that are going to sell out a stadium.
Right.
And I can't think of one off the top of my head, but what I'll say is this kind of goes back to another thing that's been said for quite some time. It goes back to Jim Morrison, and I remember Jim Morrison, I sent you that tape where he was talking about how in the future it's going to be one person with some machines doing it all himself.
And there are a lot of acts like that now. I mean, there used to be a lot, and now there are more and more and more. And
there's lots of these, or an individual who will have a rotating band or have certain parts of their band that kind of flow in and out, but they pretty much entirely go on as a tour of their own. Like you go see, for example, like Billie Eilish. She might have her, but not and recently I don't think he's there very often. Phineas, her
brother,
yeah, who, wrote a lot of the instrumentals for all those songs.
But generally, like you said, it's either pre-recorded or done digitally, or it's a band that was put together for the tour.
Right, exactly. Or it might be somebody they've worked with occasionally, from time to time, or dancers or whatever. But when you see Taylor Swift, any of these people, these are acts that you're not going to see a band. You're going to see a person. So whether or not they have a band or if it's pre-recorded or a mix of all that, that's not what you're going to see. You're going to see that individual, So like I've recently seen like Porter Robinson, Kygo, these are people that have orchestrations and things going on in a band. I saw Aurora.
That's probably one of the newest strong acts that I can think, and I mean not the only one, but a clear example of, but even she doesn't have like this whole superstar thing going on. I mean she's probably living okay, but she's not. Yeah.
I mean, you go back to something, Madonna, Bjork, that kind of thing kind of started that kind of, that direction. But now you have lots of single acts, and it goes back to the 50s and 60s. You had Elvis and, obviously, but yeah, the day of the band, the super band. Now, will one arise coming in the future? Possibly, we'll see. But for right now, it just seems it's not happening. And I think that it's because I think it's a societal shift in general where people, it's hard to get into a group and agree on what we're going to play and how we're going to play it, rather than just be like, okay, I'm going to make this music, and if somebody wants to play my stuff, they can go ahead and join me. Like, I mean, that just seems like the way it's like happening.
Well, and like I've got a friend from college who's, one of the she does like a bunch of different things, but for the most part, her other artistic things pay for her to do the band, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. So like they did a tour of like South America, and they went over to Britain and stuff, and that all sounds impressive. But again, the kids' books that she illustrates and some of the other stuff that they were able to sell while on the tour, that paid for more than the music did, which,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, going back to Kiss, and I just find it peculiar that he would even interview Kiss. I wouldn't imagine Billy Corgan.
I'm a little bit surprised that he was as big a fan of Kiss, the band, as he was, because again, from my point of view, they're not a bad band, but of the bands that came during the 70s and 80s and whatnot, there were so many bands that musically I liked so much better. I mean, in terms of the look and the way that they sold stuff, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, they can mic up and all this stuff.
I don't know, just lyrically, appearance-wise, and even music-wise, it is more comical to me than Spinal Tap. I mean, it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of it, that it is absurd and ridiculous and stupid. But I don't think it was trying to be like Gwar was.
No, it was pre-Gwar, and they didn't.
I don't think it was as much tongue in cheek as people think it might have been.
They didn't. They were just trying to come up with some kind of gimmick. But
to me, it's laughable.
In terms of the music, they weren't doing like what Gwar does at all. Which what Gwar does is awesome. I mean, they've got satire down to a.
To me,
an
it
art
was
form.
It was David Bowie for morons.
Yeah. But the difference is David Bowie was selling his albums and Kiss was selling lunchboxes. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, literally, like
I just can't take Kiss seriously at any level whatsoever.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Like, people enjoy different
Well,
things.
I don't know. It's like
people like Star Wrestling. Let them.
Yeah, I have three kind of Kiss phases. One was when I was like 7 or something, and I remember just seeing the lunchboxes and the posters and stuff, and just like, whoa, what the hell is that? And then there was some point where I was like, I don't know, in my 20s probably, where I heard the whole rumors about Gene Simmons sleeping with hundreds and thousands of women. Mm-hmm. And then there was the more recent where I kind of actually started listening to the music, and it took me that long to start listening to the music. Wow. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, that kind of says it all.
Yeah. So maybe that'll end that segment.
Okay.
Just go. I don't know. Have you listened to Kiss recently?
One or two songs here and there, just to check out some things that Billy was thinking. I was like, okay, this is okay. But again, it was, this is okay, not, oh, I want to listen to this 10 more times, this is okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, Paul Stanley and some of the other guitar players, they're technically talented. I'm not giving them a hard time at all from that point of view. I mean, they could play.
Yeah.
It just...
What are they playing and why?
There are so many other bands, both similar in style and different style, that I would rather listen to if given the chance,
Right. Hey, to each his own.
Right.
All right, later.